All right, and welcome to this episode of the State of Mirrorless. And today it's my pleasure to welcome Joseph Linaschke, or Photo Joseph, as he likes to be called. So Joseph, welcome, and how's it going?
Thank you very much. It's going great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good.
Late night there in Italy?
No, it's only not even 8 p.m. So for us, it's early. I didn't actually have dinner yet. What time is it in your neck of the woods? Where are you exactly?
10:30 in the morning. I'm in Ashland, Oregon, the west coast of the United States.
And how's the weather down there? Still summer?
It is still summer, although last week it was fall, and then it decided to switch back to summer for another week or two. But I think fall is almost here. Looking forward to it.
You can go out, still shoot outdoors in the sun. For a while, at least, before the rains start.
The rains makes great photography.
So anyway, for our audience, just introduce yourself. If you like, tell us a bit about your
absolutely.
Your story as a photographer, and what you
this could be a very long segment. How long is the show?
About 30 minutes.
Oh, well, I'll talk fast. Yeah, so my name is Joseph, or Photo Joseph, and that's how you can find me everywhere, and Facebook and the Twitters and everywhere else. And I am primarily a commercial and portrait photographer. I have a studio in Ashland. For those of you watching the video, that's my studio behind me here. And I also do a lot of video, more and more video for clients, which is actually just what's set up behind us now is a video for DxO. Some people may have seen some videos on the DxO1. I've just been producing a whole bunch of those. So that's the photography side of things I do. This is a small town that I live in, so most of the commercial work that I do is local small business, but I tend to travel quite a bit as well for my photography and for clients, for some of the bigger clients. I'm also a Lumix luminary. I'm represented by Panasonic for the Lumix mirrorless camera line, of course. And in addition to the photography, actual shooting side of things, I run the website PhotoApps.Expert, formerly known as Aperture.Expert, but since Aperture is no longer with us, the site has moved on, so PhotoApps.Expert for all types of photo apps. And I do a lot in education. I'm a lynda.com trainer. I have a series of videos on lynda.com, and then, of course, through the PhotoApps.Expert site, lots of training videos there as well. That's a small piece of what I do.
You do a lot, and
I do.
It's really inspiring. The fact that even if you live in a small town or a small city, you manage to have quite a bit of an online presence and being well known as an educator. I will also mention that I got to know you through your participation as a co-host. Is that right on This Week in Photo?
That's right.
And so on. So you managed to attract quite a bit of attention. So I think nowadays it means that probably you can be quote unquote famous even if you're living in a small town.
Well, that's true. I mean, I have a friend here. His name is Sean Bagshaw. He's a landscape photographer, and he is much bigger online following and presence than I do. And he lives in this small town, same place I do. Lives just a couple blocks away, and he's massive, and he's absolutely huge, and he's always lived here. He can't even say, oh, he used to live in New York or something and built his following and then came here. No, he's here, small town guy, but man, he's got the big following for sure.
Yeah, I know Sean. Well, I follow Sean. I don't know him personally, but I follow him online on Google Plus, and I think he has quite a big following. So that's the power of the internet, right?
That's right. Doesn't matter where you are anymore.
Yeah, good. This show is about mirrorless cameras. So we want to know what you're shooting with, what is in your bag, and how long have you been shooting mirrorless? Where do you come from?
Sure. Well, so if you go back to the beginning, and I was shooting film on Yashica contacts, and then eventually Nikon back 20 plus years ago. My first digital was Canon. That's where I got into digital photography in the Canon realm. And then I switched to mirrorless. I started dabbling in it maybe 3 years ago, the Olympus OMD EM1 or EM5. That was the first one, I think, right? The EM1's newer. Yeah, EM5. That was my first mirrorless. My first interchangeable lens mirrorless, I should say. I had other ones before that, both from Panasonic and Olympus, just more like pocket cameras. GF series cameras were quite cool. Anyway, so then I got into that Olympus and really started to appreciate what mirrorless could do. And as I was starting to buy more equipment for it and got a couple of lenses, one of the big advantages of the Micro Four Thirds, of course, is that you can use lenses from different manufacturers. And I found that the majority of the lenses that I liked the most were Panasonic lenses, the Lumix lenses. So I started exploring the Lumix lineup a bit more, and eventually that led to conversations with the Lumix people. And of course, I got signed on as a Lumix luminary, I guess about a year and a half ago or so now. So I've been shooting mirrorless for maybe 3 plus years, but shooting full-time mirrorless for probably about maybe a year and a half to 2 years full-time, as I've filled out my kit and have replaced all the old mirrored gear, you would say, which is now currently all in a box up in my storage shelf. Probably should sell it. I always say that I should sell some of this stuff, but
you're not planning to sell it anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't know. You
might decide to go back one day.
Yeah, I just used my 1DS Mark III and a 400mm f4 lens as a prop in a video. I didn't actually take pictures with it. It was a prop. That's not, you never know what you're going to need. But as far as what's in my bag, I mean, it's kind of an unfair question because I'm being a Lumix luminary. I have access to all the gear. And so my bag is certainly not your average mirrorless shooter's bag. I have access to pretty much everything. So I've got the GH4 is my primary camera. There's no question about that. That's what I shoot all of my professional work with. That's the number one go-to camera. Even though it's not the latest technology, it is the workhorse. It's the most robust, and I just know it really, really well. Got it customized exactly the way that I want it, and that's what I will use on any job. The G7, which is a very new camera, is almost like a little baby brother to the GH4. Very, very capable, smaller and lighter weight, and that has become my favorite travel camera. The last few trips that I've done, I've brought that and a couple of lenses in a very small bag and been very, very happy with it. In fact, the photo that we're going to look at later was shot on the G7. So it was that's become my carry everywhere camera, but my traveling camera, the G7 and a couple of lenses.
Yeah, many people I've interviewed have mentioned that one of the reasons that they've switched to mirrorless was the form factor, the lightweight, compact size of those cameras. But
absolutely,
you being a commercial and portrait photographer who has a studio, I don't think that features, factors much into your decision. It must have been also a matter of quality that you can get out of those data keys.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is, you're right. Size and weight doesn't matter in the studio. Sorry, I've got the size and weight does not matter in the studio. That's very true, especially if you're shooting on a tripod. If you're shooting handheld, which I still do quite a bit in the studio, then if you got a long shoot, then yeah, of course, the heavier camera can still weigh down on the wrist and so on. So it's nice to have the lighter weight camera there. But the decision to go mirrorless for size and weight, yes, as far as traveling, carrying cameras around town goes, that's obviously, it's great to have that lighter gear. But in the studio, I wouldn't have made the switch if the quality wasn't there. There was no need to as far as size and weight went. It really is more about the technology in the camera and the things that I can do in camera that I couldn't do with the other cameras, or features that are built into the camera that are either unavailable or are expensive add-ons to the other cameras. There's a lot of little things like that just add up to an experience that I prefer working with. And so these cameras just became my cameras of choice. Like I said, I still have all my Canon gear, but I have not used it. The last professional shot that I did with my Canon gear is hanging on the wall over here behind me, and that was January of last year, or maybe December the year before that, right around the New Year. And that was, I think, only because I was doing some complex lighting flash thing that I hadn't figured out how to do with the mirrorless, which now I can do. So, even that's. Yeah.
Favorite lenses, either for studio work or traveling?
The Nocticron, that's without question the favorite lens for everything. The was 42.5mm f1.2. It's awesome. That's a really, really sharp, really great shallow depth of field lens. Love that guy. If I will always try to use that lens, and I'm always not disappointed or frustrated is not the right word, but kind of bummed out if I can't. If it's, you know, too wide or too tight or whatever, it's like, oh man, I want to use that lens because I just love that lens. The Leica 35 1.7 is another favorite. Sorry, 17mm, so 35 equivalent 1.7 is another big favorite. I absolutely love that lens as well. That's the one that I will take on every trip. So the G7 with 35mm lens is a super lightweight, easy to carry everywhere combination.
With the lens like a 45mm f1.2, in some situations, I guess you have a really thin depth of field, right?
Sure.
So focusing must be really, really critical. Do you feel that the current situation with mirrorless cameras and Lumix in particular, with respect to focusing, is it good enough, or even maybe better than I've been?
Yeah, better.
With people who told me, yeah, really, I'm really surprised by how accurate focus you can get with those cameras.
Yep, how accurate, how fast. Actually, that was one of the things that drew me to mirrorless in the first place, not even on the Lumix camera, but on that old Olympus, how quickly and accurately it would focus in very low light. I distinctly remember it being in my living room at night, dim lights, playing with the camera at ISO, 8 bajillion or whatever it shoots at, and it was still able to lock focus and produce a good quality image. The locking focus was very quick, and it produced that sharp image, and that really blew me away. And I knew that with my Canons it'd be hunting, and I would probably have to turn on the light, the focus lamp, and I didn't want to do that. So that really impressed me. So yeah, focus is lightning fast, and yeah, of course, focus is critical. Well, it's always critical, super critical when you have that crazy shallow depth of field. But it works. It always works. I love the face detection. That's actually what I have turned on most of the time, since the majority of the time I'm shooting people. The face detection locks in on the eye, puts a little crosshair over the eye, and that always just blows me away. When you see that crosshair snap onto someone's eye and the camera instantly snap into focus, that's impressive.
Great. So with your permission, I'm going to share a photo that you...
Yeah, go for it.
To share my screen and show this photo that you see.
Oh, that's just... there we go. Oh, phew. Okay. Yeah. All right, so...
And maybe you can illustrate it a bit. I think this somehow relates to what we were...
yeah, absolutely. So I don't do weddings, right? I'm not a wedding photographer, and I have shot a few weddings, but that's not my thing at all. And this is a wedding in Slovenia that I was a guest at. And the bride actually hadn't hired a professional photographer. She just assumed that there was going to be enough people taking pictures. It's always interesting. But I was shooting with the G7. And I bring this picture up for a variety of reasons. First, the G7 itself, super lightweight and comfortable. And as a non-professional at the wedding, I'm just there as a guest. It was a nice, small, unobtrusive camera to have with me, right? That was great. Its ability to go silent is just, that's incredible. The fact that you can switch it into silent mode, it enables the electronic shutter, so there's no shutter movement at all, is insane. The fact that you can shoot in pure silence with that camera is a wonderful thing. This lens that this was shot with would be the 42.5 1.7, the slightly wider or slightly smaller aperture lens. So I think that's right, 42.17. I'm pulling up the metadata here to be sure that's right. Yeah, that's right, the 42.5, so 43mm f1.7 lens. So it's not quite that super shallow depth of field of the Nocticron, but as you can see, it absolutely did a fine job of knocking out the background. There is still a shallow enough depth of field to get the shot that I wanted. So this is me standing in the 7th row of the church and just shooting one of the guests there with the flower girls, and just getting this really cute shot that I was able to get completely discreetly. So that's shot with that camera. It shot RAW plus JPEG. I almost always shoot RAW plus JPEG. And the reason for that is that I like to do what we call pre-processing. So I dial in the look that I like in camera, and that writes that into the JPEG, but I will shoot RAW plus JPEG so that I have the RAW to go back to. And in this case, the pre-processed file looked pretty close to what you have here, but then I decided to give it a little bit more of a film look, and so I took it into Lightroom, which supports the G7 RAW files, processed it there, and playing with the Martin Labs presets. What are those things called? I just started playing with those. It was the first project that I worked with it, the kind of film look presets. I played with this a bit more and gave it this kind of a bit of a filmic look, and really was pleased with the way it came out. That's Mastin Labs presets.
Yeah, it's a lovely candid shot, and well, probably people cannot see it very well in the video. I'm looking at the high-res image. It's absolutely tech sharp. And just wondering, was it dark in there? Did you had to raise your ISO to
let me see. I can tell you exactly what the settings were.
Because it looks very clean to me. So
yeah, it's very clean. Its ISO is 500. This was 100th of a second at f1.7, so the lens is wide open, giving us that shallower depth of field, and obviously as much light as possible. ISO 500 is no problem, and the grain that you're seeing is added. That's added as an effect to give it a little bit more of a filmic look. And I found that I really like adding even sometimes just a tiniest touch of grain to an image to take that digital harshness out of it. It doesn't have to look grainy. It doesn't have to look like a low or a high ISO film shot, but just the tiniest bit of grain will just add just a little bit of depth and texture to a file, and I think really takes out that digital harshness and makes it a lot more pleasing, especially when you're printing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think these people who are some people are worried that small sensor will mean difficult to get a shallow depth of field, sure, and high ISO performance will not be great and so on. But I think that this kind of photo can put to rest anywhere.
Yeah, and that's a fair argument. I mean, there's science, right? You can't argue with science. A smaller sensor does give you a less shallow depth of field at any given aperture. That's the truth. But you can get a lens that, a 45 f1 point, or sorry, yeah, the 45 f1.7. I mean, that's 43, whatever it is, f1.7. It's a tiny lens. I don't have it here in front. It's back there. I can go grab it if you want to see it, but it's tiny. It is literally fits in your pocket. On this shoot on this, when I was a guest at this wedding, I had the G7, the 17 millimeter f1.7 lens, and this 42.5 millimeter f1.7 lens. The lens that I wasn't shooting with was in my coat pocket, my jacket pocket. I didn't have it in a bag. It literally fit in my jacket pocket. So the fact that I can get that shallow depth of field, that wide of an aperture on such a small lens, gives me that shallow depth of field that I want, right? And yes, the smaller sensor on any given aperture is going to be less. So if I grab a Canon 85 f1.2 and I put it up to the Lumix equivalent of 85 f1.2, I will get a shallower depth of field out of the Canon on a full frame camera. Yes, but how shallow do you need it to be? What aperture you're really going to shoot at? And that camera, you probably are rarely going to be shooting at f1.2 because it would be so shallow. So you're probably shooting at f1.7 or f2 anyway. So at this point, as you saw here, this f1.7 was great, and if it had been the Nocticron, it would have been even shallower. And the smaller sensor, as far as light gathering capabilities and the possible introduction of noise, a lot of the reasons that you get as clean of an image as you do is the computer inside. It's the processing that's happening to that raw file. It's not just the fact that it's a smaller sensor, therefore you're going to get a noisier image. It is the processing that's happening in camera, and the processing that these cameras are doing, in my mind, is way exceeding what any of the big boys are doing these days. Nikon and Canon are they're just not there. They lost the plot. They're not doing it anymore. I'm getting obviously very high quality, perfectly happy for my clients type of images out of these cameras, and that's all that matters.
Yep, I guess your clients don't ask you what camera was that photo taken with.
There's a funny story to that. I borrowed a Leica the monochrome. This is a year and change ago. I was playing with it, and I was doing a pregnancy session for someone, and I did some shots with that camera. And it's a tiny camera. And this what I'm holding is an LX100. It's about this size of a camera. Now, would you shoot with a camera this size on a professional shoot? Well, obviously, if your clients don't care, they shouldn't care. If you can sell yourself as a good enough photographer, then it shouldn't matter. But this was such a small camera that I actually looked at the client and I said, don't worry that I'm shooting with such a tiny camera. This isn't a crappy point and shoot. This is actually a really high-end Leica camera. It just happens to be small. And the guy looks at me and goes, I don't care. I don't care what you shoot with. I know what you're going to give me. I know you're going to give me a good image, so I don't care. It's like,
well,
okay.
with that camera, if somebody had any dubs, you could have just shown them the price tag. Blown away.
Oh, my friend Julio, who's a fellow Lumix luminary, he shoots with the Lumix LX100 all the time. He takes this on a lot of his professional shoots. It's a very capable camera, and it does some pretty incredible things, and it's teeny tiny. One of the things on this camera, because there's the lens is not interchangeable, it's fixed onto it. It has basically the equivalent of a leaf shutter. I can shoot any shutter speed with strobe on this camera. So if I want to be in the studio and shoot it at 0.008 of a second with my pro photos, I can do that with this camera. Can't do that with any of the interchangeable lens cameras. So there you go. There's a good reason right there to use it in the studio.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any tip or advice for our audience that you want to share?
Tip or advice: invest in lenses. Right, your lenses are the main thing. Camera bodies come and go. There's always new tech. There's in the last few months, there's been 2 different new bodies announced by Lumix. So new camera bodies are coming out all the time. Don't necessarily get swayed by those. It's great to have the latest tech, but put your money into your lenses. Lenses like the Leica 17mm f1.7 are golden. You have that lens that will last you for a very, very long time, and you'll be very happy with it. Those better lenses make all the difference in the world.
Is that a lens that is designed for Micro Four Thirds, or was it?
Yeah, it's a Lumix lens. It's one of the Lumix Leica branded lenses, and so it's fully integrated with the system. It's obviously Micro Four Thirds. It's full autofocus. It's all that, and it has an aperture ring on the lens, which I really like. I like having that aperture there, just another place to twist it. I'm an old film photographer, so I like that feel. I like being able to change the aperture on the lens itself. So that's really
I do have that too on my Fuji lenses, and it's just great. Brings me back to the old days when
it's nice to have. Fuji's got some great gear, and they've done some things really, really well lately. I like their stuff.
So is there anything about you that most people don't know that you would maybe like to share with us?
Live in a tiny little town. I don't know. What do you want to know?
You went to Slovenia for this. Just guessing, are your family original from Slovenia?
My wife is Slovenian, and we were back for her best friend, since they were babies' wedding. So that's
How is the country? I have to admit, I live in Italy. We have a border with Slovenia.
Yes, you do.
I was never in Slovenia until about a month ago.
Oh, okay. Well, at least you've been.
My first time in Slovenia was about a month ago, and I live for 400 kilometers from the border.
That's pretty bad, man. That's pretty bad.
All the way from Oregon, and you've been there already before me.
Oh, I've been there many times now.
It's a lovely country, I think.
It is a lovely country. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And where my wife is from, it's near the Austrian border, and it's wine country. So if you like wine and you like rolling hillsides and pretty sunrises and sunsets, it's a nice place to go.
Is that close to Lake Bled?
Well, in Slovenia, everything's close, right? It's a tiny country. I think it's about an hour and a half to Lake Bled, I think, if I remember right.
Just for the people who never heard of that place, if you see online, you see it in like screensaver pictures or nice picture of an island in the middle of a lake with a church and a steeple and mountains in the background. That is probably Lake Bled. It's a very picturesque location.
Yeah, if you see a picture from Slovenia of a lake with an island, it is the only island in a lake in all of Slovenia. So it's known for that. But it's beautiful, beautiful country.
So come to Slovenia. Okay. What's next? Just where can people go to find more about you, find you online? You already mentioned your...
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, PhotoJoseph.com is my photography website. There's a blog on there, although I don't blog that much. But it's a lot of the Instagram and photos do end up on there as well. So on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, it's always PhotoJoseph. Just PhotoJoseph makes it easy. That's everywhere. And then PhotoApps.Expert for the for that side of things. And then also there's just want to be able to shout out to your listeners. We're doing a workshop in Mexico, in Oaxaca, Mexico in January. And this is going to be a cultural tour / photography workshop. It's going to be quite a small group, about 10 people. And we are getting ready to open up the signups for that. And all the information about it is at photojoseph.com/workshops. So if you just go there, you'll be able to read all about it, see the places we're going, and it's going to be a incredible experience. So there's a newsletter there you can sign up for. It's the only way you're going to find out the when the tickets are available. It'll be through the newsletter. So if you're interested at all, you got to sign up there.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the blog post when we share this video, of course. How many days is that trip going to be?
10 days. It's a 10-day workshop.
Awesome. Great. I'm sure it will be great places in Mexico.
Oh, it's a beautiful area. And what's really cool about it is the guy who's doing the cultural side of it, that's what he does. He does cultural tours. He's been doing them there for over a decade. And he's American, but he lives half of his year every year in Oaxaca. And so he knows the area, knows the people, has access to things that most tourists, most foreigners do not have access to. So it's a very special opportunity as a tourist to be able to see some pretty incredible things. And of course, obviously you go on one of these tours, you take your camera, but now there's a complete photography workshop rolled into it as well. So it's going to be it'll be a really fun 10 days.
I'm sure. So thanks again for being with us today. It's been very informative and enlightening about all things mirrorless and Panasonic Lumix in particular.
Absolutely. Thank you, Hugo, for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. And maybe one day our paths will cross around Slovenia or somewhere.
There you go. There you go. Follow me on Instagram. You'll know when I'm there, and then you can say, "Hey, come over and grab a glass of wine with me."
I will, certainly. Okay.
Sounds good.
Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.